FragPunk has 13 Lancers in the game, but which are the best in the game and which are the worst? Well, I'm going to show you in this video. If you enjoy, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. With that being said, let's get to the tier list. Starting off, we're going to start with Broker. He specializes in skill damage, vision control, and trap placement. So his skill damage is definitely the shoulder rocket launcher, which will kill on a direct hit, and then it will do some knockback on a non-direct hit and do quite a bit of damage. And then vision control, he definitely has it with his smoke, which he throws a coin and then it makes this whole entire line of the smoke. And now you have all of this smoke to work with to get around with you and your team. And then trap placement, he can definitely block off some area ways with his signature ability, which will set off these orbs, and they do quite a bit of damage. They do, I think, 80 damage an orb whenever people get hit, so it takes 2 orbs to get a kill on someone. But overall, his shoulder rocket launcher is really solid. His smokes is probably the best smokes in the game, and then his signature ability is just all right. It's very easy to get destroyed, but overall he's a really solid character. So with that being said, I'm gonna put Broker in A tier. Next up, we're gonna look at Nitro. Nitro specializes in fortification, defense, and trap placement. So Nitro's ability is Chug Chug, which is this drone which he can use to move around. It's used really great for a camera. It has rockets that it can shoot at enemies, and it does 20 damage a shot. And then you can also just use it as a camera to look around corners, like we can see over there. We can see the enemy, or if we came over here, we'd be able to see all the way down that whole entire lane without having to actually expose my character. And Chug Chug can also jump to get to places that normally they wouldn't be able to get to, but Chug Chug is really great to use as a camera. And then she has these walls which she can use to get to better angles that normally she's not supposed to be able to get to, or other characters can't get to. And then she has a great angle at enemies like that. Or she can also use the walls as just cover. If she wants to go into her chug, she can just have the wall as cover so no enemies can shoot her from this direction. And the walls do have quite a bit of health on them as well. And then her signature ability is these pew pews, which is good at controlling points and exposing enemies. Nitro really specializes in a lot of intel. So the pew pews tick for 5 damage a tick, and it will just expose where the enemy is at. But then if you stack the two on top of each other, it'll do 10 damage a tick. So Nitro's Chug Chug is definitely really good. One of the best abilities in the game because it can do damage and is good for intel. And then the pew pews do decent damage. That's also really good for intel. And the walls is good protection for her. So Nitro is definitely an S tier Lancer. Next up is Hollow Point. Hollow Point specializes in skill damage, trap placement, and vision control. So skill damage, Hollow Point has this sniper, which if she charges it up, it will one tap to the body, and then charge up a little bit. Obviously, it'll one tap to the head. And then she has this smoke screen, which is also probably one of the best smokes in the game. Then you can use it to push up with you and your team, and it will reveal enemies that get caught inside of the smoke screen. And then she has this sonar detector, so she can place it down, and then if enemies walk through it, it will grab onto them and it will reveal them through walls. So Hollow Point is really good for intel, and especially if people get caught up inside of her smoke screen, they get revealed for quite a while, and it does reveal to her whole team. So she is really good for gathering intel and making pushes around the map. With that being said, Hollow Point is definitely another S tier Lancer. Next up is Jaguar. Jaguar specializes in trap placement, vision control, and detection. So he has this trap that he can place down on the ground. Then if enemies trigger it, it does so much damage, and it does enough to be able to kill enemies if they stay in it for long enough. And then he has this ability that makes a cage around enemies that get caught in it, and it just obscures their vision. And then if you hit his ultimate ability, it'll show the enemies through the cage if they are inside of it, which is smoke is all right. There's definitely better options, but it's really good if you pair it up with his ultimate ability, which also detects enemies in front of him, and it lets him know how many enemies are in front of him within a certain radius. So his main thing is really getting intel for him and his team. His smoke could be better, but his trap is pretty good. But overall, there's other characters that do the intel better than he does. So with that being said, I'm gonna have to put him in B tier. Next is the newest character in the game, which is Chum. Chum specializes in trap placement, skill damage, and vision control. So Chum has his little buddy named Chomper, which he can feed an explosion bait or a smoking bait. And if we feed him an explosion one, then we use him and he'll go after the nearest enemy to me. So if we throw him down, he will just follow us around if we aren't near an enemy, but the second that we get close enough to an enemy, he will go after them, and he does around 77 damage a hit. And then he has this tripwire ability where if enemies set it off, then it'll blow up, and it does so much damage, and it actually triggers pretty quick. And then he has a smoke grenade, which is like a pretty standard smoke grenade, but there's definitely better smokes than that, but it is pretty good at blocking off areas. And then he can also make Chomper smoke, and then he can turn with Chomper to make him go in different directions. So Chomper can be an amazing smoke because he gets to be able to control it. So with all that being said, I'm gonna have to put Chum in B tier. Next is Corona, who specializes in teleportation, area delay, and frontal assault. So Corona's first ability is just his dash, which is really good for getting behind cover if he needs to go through an open area to get behind the cover. And then he has a fire pool, which it doesn't tick for much damage, but it can be good to stop enemies from making a push for a tiny bit or blocking off an area way. And then he has the ultimate, which turns him into a flashbang, and it will flash enemies that are visible to him whenever he hits it. But people like to pair up that ability with his dash, so if you time it right, you can dash around a corner and flash people. But if you do manage to mess it up and not even flash anybody, then you do leave yourself in a pretty vulnerable spot. So he has a decent dash, but it's not really good unless it's paired with his flash, but you have to do it correctly. And then same thing could be said vice versa. His flash isn't good unless it's really paired up with his dash. And then his trap doesn't do that much damage, so it's pretty low tier trap compared to others in the game. So with that being said, Corona is going to be in B tier. Next up is Ciret, who specializes in vision control, area delay, and teleportation. So Ciret's first ability is her teleportation. She gets around a corner and then she can become a ball, and enemies become a little tornado, so she can see where enemies are at, and then she can teleport and then get them from behind. Ciret's second ability is her tornado, which she just throws it in a straight direction, and then her and her teammate can use it to make a push. She can also stop it whenever she wants, and then it becomes slightly bigger, so then it becomes just like a big smoke grenade. And you can also pair that with her teleporting. If you just sit inside of the tornado as you're going to teleport, then it allows you to teleport without you being seen by enemies. And then she has her trap, which she can throw down, and it'll pull enemies to the center of it, which they get caught in it pretty well. Is a pretty good trap. So Ciret has a really nice teleport ability that is really good for gathering intel. Even if she doesn't want to use it, she can cancel it. Her tornado smoke is one of the best in the game. It is really good for making a push, and then her trap is one of the best in the game as well because it will pull enemies out from behind their cover. But if only Ciret's orb wasn't so easy to be destroyed, and if it moved faster, then she would definitely be an S tier character. You could argue for her to be an S tier, but for now we're just gonna put her in A tier. Next up is Pathogen. She specializes in health recovery, fortification defense, and trap placement. She's the only medic character in the game at the moment, but her first ability is her healing pool, which she throws down and it can heal her and her teammates. Her second ability is these walls that she can use for protection. She can also hit enemies between it, so she gives herself a nice angle. She can definitely mess up some enemies through the tiny gaps. And then her third ability is a pool of poison, which she can set down, and then it will hit enemies, but it also doesn't have to just go off on its own. She can just throw it down and she can activate it whenever she wants as well by just holding square. But since she's the only support character in the game, she has to definitely be an easy S tier. Next up is Zephyr. She specializes in assassin, area delay, and teleportation. She is probably the best character in the game in my opinion. Her first ability, she can go invisible, and as long as that meter is still there, she's invisible the whole time. She's really good at going up to melee enemies, and if you do go behind the enemies, it does one tap for a back shot, but if you were to hit them from the front, you're not going to be able to get the one tap. But you do have the two different swings as well, so you got to make sure you do the secondary swing. If you do the primary swing and just jab at them, it's not going to get the one tap kill. But then her second ability makes a cage around here, and as long as she's in here, she's going to hit this ability, and now the meter does not go down at all. So if you get enemies inside of this, then you are just completely invisible and they will have no idea where you are at. And then her very last ability sets a teleport spot, so she can teleport here, and if we just press that button again, then it will teleport us back. But if we go invisible, we can come here, get a kill, and then teleport back to the spot without any enemies seeing us or having any idea where we're at. So she can be a really fun character if you play her correctly. You just got to know how to to use her teleportation and invisibility efficiently to be able to get kills. But with that being said, Zephyr is definitely an S tier character. Next up, we have Spider. Spider specializes in teleportation, area delay, and trap placement. So what makes Spider really good is his teleporters that he places. Him and his teammates can use these teleporters. So you can put one teleporter at one bomb site, and then he can place the other one on the other bomb site, and then his teammates can use it by just walking through the portals. So that is what makes him really good. And then his second ability, he can throw this orb, and then any enemies that get caught inside of it will get teleported to where he threw the orb from. So if he knows enemies are behind a wall, he can just throw that there and it'll pull them in, and then pull them into where he was at. And then he has a spider trap as well that he can throw down, and whenever it triggers, it will blind the enemies for a short amount of time. If you use this trap and then it goes off, you know that you need to throw down that to teleport the enemies to you. But the main part about his kit that makes him amazing is definitely this teleporter. It is definitely a big game changer because it allows for your team to make quick rotations around the map. And then this grabbing ability is definitely one of the best abilities in the game if it is made useful. And then his spider blind is a decent trap as well. So with that being said, Spider is going to be A tier. Next is Kismet, who specializes in detection and skill damage. So Kismet's first ability is she can reveal enemies even through the walls that are near her within a certain radius. And then her second ability is like a grenade, but it does so much damage to the enemies that are inside of it. So it does 100 damage, and it can even hit enemies through walls. So if we just throw this over here, then you can see the enemy is not in front of it, but it did hit him even though he was on top of the box. And then Kismet's third ability is similar to Ciret's, where she can teleport, but she cannot see enemies, but she moves a lot quicker, and it doesn't last as long. But if you pair that teleport with smokes, for example, and it is an extremely great ability. But her flash is really good for getting intel, especially if you don't know where enemies are at, and if you want to enter a room, and you have no idea if there's enemies there or not. And then the holy grenade is also really good, does amazing damage, and it goes off pretty quickly as well. Kismet is definitely one of the best characters in the game as well, so we'll put her in S tier. Coming close to the end, the second to last character, Axen. He specializes in skill damage and frontal assault. So his first ability is this guitar, and if he has this guitar, he turns it into a shotgun, and as long as he keeps getting killed, it'll keep the guitar recharged as long as he's still getting kills. And then he can even throw these sticky grenades. He can just keep throwing them as long as he has his guitar. I think he's limited to maybe 10 or even 20 in the actual game, but since we're in the firing range, it just gives him an infinite amount. But these sticky grenades are extremely good, especially if you're trying to enter a room. You can just throw your sticky grenades all inside of a room, and it'll mess up the enemies and do crazy damage. And then he just has the sticky grenades that he can just throw in general, and they do a little bit of damage to the enemies. And then his last ability makes it to where he cannot get blinded by any flash abilities. So if the other team is flash heavy, then it's definitely a good ability. But if there's no flashes going on, then he is not the best character to go for because that ability just basically becomes useless. But while he has his guitar out as well, he has a passive where he can slide. So he gets a little stage slide with his guitar. He used to be able to slide even if he had a normal weapon out in the beta, but now he cannot do that. So it definitely brings him down from where he used to be skill-wise. And with that being said, he will definitely go in A tier. And lastly, with the last character in the game, Sonar. Sonar specializes in area delay and detection. So Sonar's first ability is this sonar pillar, and it'll reveal enemies, but only if they are moving inside of that range. So they have to be moving around when that goes off, otherwise they will not be able to get detected. So as long as this is down, your team could be able to make a move on enemies in a nearby area because they will be forced to stand still and won't be able to move. And then Sonar's second ability is this sonar beam, which she can shoot through walls, and it can expose enemies through the wall, and then it'll send them up into the air and revealing them as well. And it can capture multiple enemies if there are multiple that get caught inside of the beam blast. So it can definitely be a really good ability. And then her last ability is really good, but it doesn't last long, so you gotta make sure that you use it correctly. It's silent steps, so no one can hear her steps, but it only lasts for like 2 or 3 seconds. But if you know enemies are in a room and you want to try to make a little move around without them knowing, then you can make a little flank on them without them knowing. But Sonar is definitely the best detection character in the game. game with her 2 abilities allowing for detecting on characters, and then her silent step ability. But if only her silent steps lasted longer, then she would definitely be S tier, but for now, we'll just have to put her in A tier. That's it for the tier list. Let me know if you found the tier list helpful by leaving a like and subscribing, or if you think I got any of the rankings wrong, let me know in the comments below. But with that being said, I'll see y'all later.